Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to reflect on the journey that we went through. First, when we were developing the Africa Disability Protocol, as we call it. The full name is the Protocol to the African Charter for Human and People's Rights. Our Pan-African Parliament was already involved in that process, although it didn't involve them directly. But we were aware that their involvement in the protocol was going to be useful later on when we develop the model disability law. So we want to thank the Pan-African Parliament for supporting the adoption of the Africa Disability Protocol so that we can start working on a model disability law. The law is basically premised on the idea that if you have a protocol that you adopt, then you will need a law that enables you to domesticate the protocol. That is the primary reason why we need a model disability law. The model disability law had to be developed from scratch using the Africa Disability Protocol as a foundation, and then it had to be written from scratch. And we, as the Africa Disability Alliance, we are very, very pleased that, first of all, we worked successfully to develop the protocol and to have it adopted by the AU heads of states. And then secondly, we worked with the Pan-Africa Parliament to ensure that the model disability law was adopted. It was a long process. And credit goes to the Pan-Africa Parliament for the public hearings that were done in the different regions of Africa. The law was presented for debates in North Africa, in Morocco, in Kenya, in Nairobi for East Africa, and in West Africa, in Senegal, Dakar, Senegal. That was for West Africa and Central Africa. And now for the past 2 days, we have adopted the law as well here in Southern Africa. Now, the implications of the protocol and the law is that we are able to convey, to empower individuals with disability in Africa to ensure that they have the right and the means to defend their rights. They are able to take the protocol and the law and use them in the defense of their rights and in promoting their well-being and in ensuring that they work together with government to draw legislation and policies at national level that benefits the citizens. So there is consensus between civil society organizations, our legislative sector in Africa, our judicial sector, as well as individuals and organizations of people with disability, that such a law is now necessary and that it has to aspire to achieve standards that are in line with the objectives of the African Union. The objectives of the African Union are described in many documents like Agenda 2063, among others, and also the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the National Development Plans of all African states. They describe aspirations that must be achieved in each country. So we are here to contribute to that effort by enabling governments to have the legislative framework, the policy framework that they require in order for them to promote the rights and well-being of people with disabilities. So on that, we are very, very excited about that achievement. And we now need to call on African governments, all of them, to now sign and ratify the Africa Disability Protocol. We really want to show that we provide priority to African policy instruments exactly in the same way that we give priority to policies and conventions that are not necessarily from Africa. So we call on Africans not to let ourselves down again, by delaying the signing and the ratification of the Africa Disability Protocol. We call on African governments, again on the AU heads of states and African governments, to take the model disability law, which is now developed, and then to domesticate it in their countries, and to ensure that they comply with the law, which is intended to harmonize policy and practice in Africa. So we call on governments to take the law as soon as it is passed by the heads of states and to start domesticating it in their countries and developing policies and strategies that achieve the objectives of each article in the law. And then, of course, for the Pan-Africa Parliament, this is not the end of the journey. For the Pan-Africa Parliament, there is now need to develop monitoring and evaluation systems and to develop an oversight strategy on the law and to ensure that all stakeholders, government, the private sector, disabled people's organizations, civil society organizations generally, public institutions like human rights commissions in different countries, that they start to take these laws and to implement them and to exercise oversight over them. So we call upon all stakeholders to now aspire to use these laws and the protocol to achieve far much higher standards and norms than we have done to date.